See, with this kind of distortion, where I'm stretching this axis and compressing it in towards the middle, I could, in addition to having this kind of distortion going, I could do nothing along my z-axis, which is my vertical axis, and I could add something which was stretching in this direction and compressing in this direction, which I'll represent by +1, -1, 0. Looking at it from above, it's as though you have a circle, and you're going to squish it down in this direction and stretch it out in this direction. It's that kind of distortion. And there's, notice, no change in the axis, which is out of the blackboard. So this is a basic kind of three-dimensional distortion which you can work with. And if I take this kind of distortion, which has got components in all directions, and add to it a little bit of this, I could mix them together with weighted quantities and come up with something like this. I could take two of these and one of these, and if I add them together, I would get a distortion like two of those would give me 4, two of -1, and one of +1 would give me -1. Two of -1 and one of -1 would give me -3. If I have a distortion where it's stretching 4% in this direction, it's compressing 1% in this direction, and it's compressing 3% in this direction, that can be represented as a linear combination of certain percentage of this kind of basic distortion plus a certain percentage of this basic kind of distortion. This is the right way to look at these things, and as far as I can tell. Now I want to make some point about the dimensionality of this kind of thing, which is to say, having this distortion, I could twist it around the z-axis, causing these figures to rotate towards each other. In other words, I could move them in this direction. Kind of circle like that. And that would be an additional degree of freedom, if I can call it that. And then I can take this special axis, which is the axis of the most distortion, and I could tilt it in any which direction. And to specify direction in space requires a tilt in this way plus a rotation in that way. Man, you've got to specify a direction in space, and that means you can tilt this every which way. And what I'm trying to say is that by the time you take a basic type of distortion like this one specified as, which I've specified as a combination of these two kind of prototypes, by the time you take something like this and account for all the ways you can twist it and turn it in space, it requires 5 numbers to fully describe it. It requires one number that tells you what's the percentage of your this kind of distortion, another number to tell you how much of this kind of distortion there is, and 3 more numbers to tell you the total direction, including 2 to tell you which direction the long axis is pointed in, and 1 more number to tell you what it swiveled around. So unlike a vector, which a vector is specified by 3 numbers, we're looking at quantities here which takes 5 numbers to describe them. Distortion is like that. This topic's getting a little out of hand. I think maybe we'll sit down and let's hear Neil do a song for us. Are you up for that one?
Well, Marty, my head is just spinning. How can I sing a nice country song?
Well, you got to bring us back to honesty, reality.
It just seems like you're doing stuff that the minute before you said you couldn't do, like superposing those things. Like, Before you said you can't really do that with distortions as if they were vectors.
Oh, no, what I meant is that if I tried to take 3 of those ones that I first came up with, that they didn't form a suitable set of vectors with which I could describe all other kinds of distortions. I have to choose a different basis.
I see, okay.
They don't form the same kind of basis.
Okay, I thought you were saying for some reason you can't superimpose.
No, we want to be, the whole point of creating these is to be able to use
But that original one that you've got, if you superpose it with 2 others, with the 2 in the 2 other directions, then everything vanishes.
Yeah.
And does that work as far as pounds and percent motion, that works out?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
That'll translate to 0 pounds and 0%.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Just you add them up the numbers and they come to nothing's happening. Whereas with vectors, if you're pushing on the z-axis and I'm pushing on the y-axis and he's pushing on the x-axis, then the total force is a net total force in this direction. It's not vanishing. So we need to create a system. It's just the next thing beyond vectors. I mean, geometry just requires more complexity to describe it the more you get into this dimensional stuff. So I'm trying to show my approach to understanding what is beyond vectors, why there's such a thing as tensors you heard of. Like when they tell you tensors in university, they say a tensor is a quantity described in some mathematical kind of definition which I never have understood. But this has got to be what tensors really are. It's got to be. Let's do a song.
Let's sing a song, yeah. You gonna take us in on melody?
No, you do the melody.
Yeah, I mean chords. Sorry.
Yeah.
So it's like 1, 2, 3, and. There's a young girl that I know. Her age is 21. She comes from down in Southern California. I just got out of the service. I'm looking for my fun someday soon. Gone with me someday soon. Her parents cannot stand me 'cause I work the rodeo. They say that I am gone to leave her crying, but I know she'll follow me down any road I go someday soon. Gone with me someday soon. When I come to call, her pa ain't got a good word to say. And it's talks he was just as wild back in his younger days. So blow me, old blue northern, blow me on my way. I'm driving back tonight from California. I love those damn old rodeos as much as I love her. Someday soon, gone with me someday soon. When I come to call, her pa ain't got a good word to say. Yet it's talked he was just as wild back in his younger days. Blow me, old blue northern, blow me on my way. I'm driving back tonight from California. I love those damn old rodeos as much as I love her. Someday soon, gone with me someday soon. Someday soon, gone with me someday soon. Someday soon, gone with
Neil's got a nice habit. Every time he hits a sour chord, he's got this kind of smile. I've seen it on TV on those reruns 100 times. Somebody can get them all and patch them all together one after another. Neil hitting a wrong note. Oops. Oops.
You figure the people at home don't notice it, so I shouldn't like let on, because like a lot of them wouldn't know.
No, I think it looks good.
Oh.
I get a laugh out of it every time. Yeah, I think it's good. Okay, here we are. Don't miss the special April 1st edition of Math with Marty. That should be theoretically next Monday night when we do the Math with Marty peace plan for the Middle East. And that just about does it. I would like to foreshadow some of the mathematical stuff that we want to do with these three-dimensional kind of things. You know that with a vector, well, I say you know it, basically we're assuming that there's a certain knowledge of vectors that... Look, I don't want to teach vectors on TV at this point in time. So I'm talking as though everyone knows what a vector is. And you know that you can call a vector something by its magnitude and its direction. And here I've sort of described a way of laying out distortions in terms of a dual kind of magnitude plus a directional thing, but the directional thing is more dimensional than a vector direction because it's got spin associated with it as well. So there's 5 quantities in describing a distortion. But instead of having sort of a mixture of magnitudes and directions, I'd like to get them all just the same way as you have vectors, with 3 basic directional things, only I want to have 5 basic kind of prototype distortions and show that any distortion will be described as a combination of them. And I'm hoping we'll be able to accomplish this in some future show. And that just about does it for now. And we got a song to go home with, Neil? Close her off with?
What do you feel like playing?
Yeah, just do that, start playing that thing, Big John. Every morning at the mine you could see him arrive. He stood 6'6" and weighed 245, kind of broad at the shoulders and narrow at the hip. And everybody said you didn't give no lip to Big John. Big John, Big John, Big Bad John, Big John. Well, nobody seemed to know where John called home. He just drifted into town and stayed all alone. He didn't speak much, seemed kind of quiet and shy.